Scott Bauer. He's the CEO of Prosper Trading Academies, joining us. Scott, welcome. Thanks for giving us part of your Thursday afternoon, a busy day.
Hi,
Let's get into the numbers. Let's talk jobless claims, because that probably really attracted the most attention, with GDP coming in line with expectations and durable goods a better than expected number. But it seems like the focus remains on the jobs, Scott.
No doubt about it. That, the number of 1.48 million or so, a little worse than expected. Pretty much in line. It's that continuing claims number that is still very bothersome to me, that we're not really seeing that going down much at all. The other numbers, GDP was as expected, though that's going to get much worse, because one thing we need to keep in mind is the GDP number that came out this morning really only included, about 2 weeks of the lockdowns, right? First quarter. So we're going to see those numbers plummet, which will be expected for next quarter. And I've read that many analysts are expecting it will absolutely be the worst quarter ever on history for GDP.
Yeah, we're hearing something like Atlanta Fed predicting something like down 45% or something like that, I'm hearing. Let's talk a little bit about, if so, Scott, we've got consumer sentiment numbers tomorrow. It'll be interesting to see what that does do to consumer sentiment. We're seeing the retailers come off a little bit today. I mentioned we've got Ross Stores, which is actually weighing on the NASDAQ. I took a look at that at the top of the show. We've got JWN, which is weighing on the S&Ps, the SPX. Talk to us about what you're seeing, because Ulta also in that group of big names that's coming off a bit today. What are you seeing as far as retailers and the hit they're taking?
Yeah, I'm actually bullish on some individual retailers, but you look at a Ross Stores here, and from a technical standpoint, Ben, since they reported their last earnings, this stock is down, and it's been trending down. They didn't give any guidance here, so it's actually trading with this pullback today at some big support here. However, if it does not hold at this support here, I can easily see this thing getting into the 60s, down about another 20% from here.
Wow. Talking of support, there seems to be a little bit for JWN as well, Scott, down around that $14 level, $12 level. They got a little bit overextended on that low that they saw at $12.27, and for the most part, they've been consolidating at this lower level. But one could argue that this is really just acceptance of price activity at this lower level, and also somewhat of a bearish flag kind of pattern. Potentially, we could see the door open up to the downside again. If these numbers start to get worse, Scott, if we start to hear of shut-ins or restrictions being started to coming back into place. I mean, we're hearing about businesses. I think it was Apple, Disney in the news. What if we start to hear more restricted flights and some of the other bad news that started some of these concerns and that slide that we saw back in March? I mean, we have potential to see some of these retailers really come back under pressure again, I would imagine.
No doubt about it. This could be the one that breaks the camel's back.
Yeah.
I look at a Nordstrom, and like you said, to me, this is really bearish. The price activity that's been relatively flat over the last few weeks, it's really bearish. And for some reason, to me, unless Nordstrom Rack, the discount part of Nordstrom, is able to save this stock, yeah, I'm not saying it's going in the way of a J.C. Penney, but they may actually look now for a buyout, because it's not very promising here.
All right, we'll see if they can save that stock. JWN currently trading down 5.5%. Speaking of savings, let's talk banks. FDIC lifting restrictions, stress tests I'm hearing about. I've got Wells Fargo. Looks like you've got Goldman and also Bank of America on your radar. Talk to us about what you're seeing there in terms of the lift that they're getting.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens with the stress tests. I mean, across the board, they should be probably okay. But the one that stands out to me that has maybe the most downside possibility really is Wells Fargo. To me, it's very iffy what may come out of these stress tests, and I'd be very, very cautious. Now, on the other side of the ballpark here, I look at a Goldman Sachs. And outside of, not just being healthy, which they are in this environment, what I think you're going to see with a Goldman and even a JP Morgan coming forward with their next round of earnings, which are not so far away, is we should see trading revenues just blowing the doors off of all estimates because of the volatile environment that we've been in over the last 3 months or so. These trading revenues should be phenomenal. So I'm very, very watchful, let's say, on Wells Fargo, very optimistic on Goldman Sachs. And Bank America, kind of somewhere in the middle. I don't think there's a lot of downside to Bank America, but I'm certainly not as optimistic about it as I am on a couple of the others.
Yeah, Scott, it'll be interesting, as you mentioned, the trading revenues to see if these traders being forced to work from home, if that made them a little bit less aggressive, if it made them, again, kind of shift some of their tendencies, if it sort of slowed some of their ability to participate in markets. You mentioned the volatility. Oftentimes that does bring about better results from some of those trade desks. That'll be key to watch. I'm glad you brought that to our attention. And as you mentioned, earnings are not that far around the corner again. Scott, really appreciate you joining us here for a good look at some of the activity that's playing out. We're going to watch Wells here because if they continue lower, it looks like they're in a bit of an inverse head and shoulders pattern here. We're going to keep an eye on that 22 level. Goldman holding well off those lows from earlier this spring. Scott, really appreciate it. Thanks for giving us part of your Thursday afternoon. Trader Scott Bauer is the CEO of Prosper Trading Academy.